Hello everyone! So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend as if I'm excited or happy to be making this video here and now, but I really do feel like it's time someone openly speaks about this in a way where it can be heard from various different parts of the Random Dice player base. Today's video is not completely clickbait, unlike the experimental video I uploaded the other day. I do not expect this video to be taken too well from my viewers or from people who are very invested in playing the game, and before I make any statements or speak my mind, I would like to make something abundantly clear. I do not encourage anyone to stop playing Random Dice, and I do not condone anyone throwing unnecessary shit on the game for the sake of hating. My general motivation and reason for making as well as uploading videos on Random Dice is purely to inspire others, spread positivity and joy, as well as tutoring newer players who might need guidance or a helping hand. This video overall is mainly going to be a message to the developers of Random Dice, whether they will ever see this or not, but I highly do recommend newer or returning players to watch this in the fullest as well. I personally really like Random Dice, and I always have, but recently the game has started drifting in a direction that I personally do not like at all, and I know for a fact that other players have experienced the same thing as me regarding this. If you are a newer player who just recently started grinding and now stumble upon this video, this might come as a shock to you since you might not have seen the game's previous stages. But if this is the case, I just want to say that the game, as far as I can judge right now, seems to be doing totally alright at the moment, and there's absolutely no reason to abandon it at all. But when looking at the game from a bigger point of view, just in general, you could definitely spot several major issues, and today we are going to be going through plenty of those. I would like to start lightly and work my way up as we go. As I have mentioned previously in several different videos during different occasions, Random Dice, or as it was called back then, Royal Dice, isn't exactly a super new game any longer, as it was publicly released around mid-2019. I can imagine that it's usually quite difficult for phone game developers to keep players interested and pleased in every new update that gets released, especially in games that over time gets stale and repetitive without major changes in them. Random Dice somewhat happens to be that kind of a game, and in order for the gameplay and playstyle to feel fresh and new as well as fun, it is very important to change things up and keep players on their feet all the time, simply allowing them to explore new mechanics and learn new things, especially in strategy games, which is a genre that Random Dice undoubtedly falls under. Let's be honest, when was the last time that Random Dice actually had a big update that changed the game? As far as I can remember, the last time they actually did something that changed anything about the way the game is played whatsoever is the update version 9.3.0, where they added distortion dice, which simply allowed high-class players as well as low-class players for once to make it really far in co-op without actually using Holy Sword. But players were allowed to have fun for around 14 days, and then they of course decided to nerf that as well. So besides the Distortion Dice edition, I would personally say that the last update that actually switched anything up was Rage Dice, which I would like to call the downfall for PvP decks in general. Before Rage Dice was added, most updates were fairly balanced and the game looked generally good overall. Starting with Rage Dice, most upcoming dice releases generally hurt the game more and more, with each new dice being more broken than the other. That was also around the time where the developers decided to completely scrap the idea of using any other dice rarity besides the legendaries, simply as they were straight up just too OP. Ever since then, there has been 2 or 3 dices at the lower rarities added to the game, while 18 legendaries as well as 7 traits and 9 old school legendary skins has been added. Something that bothers me here as well is the fact that they don't even bother coming up with new creative designs for half of the dice skins that they put out. They slap the old UI looks on top of the newly released dices that literally aren't even half a year old and never would have had the same UI as the game had back then. This is also the same time that they completely lost interest in making interesting and unique thumbnails for their YouTube update previews, which in my opinion is just another sign of them being lazy. As well as the thumbnails not getting updated, I believe most of the older videos used to actually have someone reading all the exciting news that would be coming to the game. A much beloved person by the name of Pinky was was always there to bring up whatever was new, and I personally thought that was great. And I do know that a lot of people really miss her as well. Instead of that, now the newer updates all have the exact same update tune, rolling over the clips that they show of the new updates, and they straight up just feel auto-generated and robotic. As of currently, the meta within the game itself has been quite stale over the last year or two, and not all that much is changing. Especially the aggro decks that end the game within a minute of it starting is currently found a lot, but I can't say with confidence that it is more than it was before, like with Hypersyn being played a lot back then, for example. As I was saying earlier, for strategy and tower defense games such as Random Dice, the updates and the new content arriving is much needed and longed for. In order for a game such as this to be kept active and enjoyed, well thought through updates are necessary and needs to be kept coming. The events within Random Dice used to be something that me and a lot of players were very excited about, and whilst those events still exist, there really isn't as much hype around them anymore as it was before. When I started playing and making videos specifically, plenty of different event ideas were brought up, and a lot of them were honestly really fun. But since then there's barely been any new events added whatsoever, and there are just the same old ones put on repeat, and they also don't happen all that very often. Something else that I also wanted to talk about was the trait addition to the game as a whole. The trait addition was something that I'm sure both me and a lot of other players saw as a good and fun idea at first, but more recently newer players have really struggled to play and get into the game at the higher classes at all without spending a bunch of money or grinding for months before being able to ever so slightly get into the current meta. With each new trait and legendary being added, it simply just feels like another cash grab. And in my personal opinion, those are fine, as long as the update is actually good and the content is new and fresh. But I personally do not think that is the case here. Lastly, I would like to bring up the fact that 111%, the owners of Random Dice, currently are working very hard on in-real-life events and updating many of their other games, like Lucky Defense for example. But leaving a great game like Random Dice, that even somewhat shaped the company as it is today, rot and fully prioritize another game, whilst Random Dice still has a decently big active player base, is not cool at all in my personal opinion. With all of this being put out there, I would really like to thank everyone still watching for hearing me out on this not so fun rant. Some of the things I said in this video is obviously just my personal opinion and reflection on things, but some of the things mentioned here are straight up facts. I have no intention to stop making videos on Random Dice, as I've already said several times. I genuinely really like the game even if I don't like the direction the game is heading and all the things that developers are deciding to do with it. I am not going anywhere. But lastly, if 111% somehow, for some reason, ends up watching this video, I would just like to say that Random Dice Defense is an amazing game and so many others love dearly. It is not a dead game and it doesn't have to be for a long time to come. Please consider putting your best effort into the game and its updates once again. Bring back all the old players as well as even more new players again. Random Dice is a great game and we all appreciate it.